guys that engage in actions, okay, if those actions are declared disruptive to the regular order of business, they will be considered terrorists by the state. Luigi Mangione comes to mind. Let's get back to the Cybertruck investigation, one that also is confusing.
We turn now to the investigation into the New Year's Day Cybertruck blast outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. This morning, we're hearing from the ex-girlfriend of the Green Beret identified as the driver. Mola Lenghi joins us with that story. Good morning, Mola.
Well, good morning, Rebecca. Yeah, as authorities investigate that Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas this morning, we're hearing from someone who was in contact with Matthew Livelsberger through his final days.
I failed him. We all failed him.
The ex-girlfriend of Matthew Livelsberger, the man who carried out the Las Vegas blast in front of the Trump Hotel, opening up about their final messages. Alicia Arrett hadn't heard from her ex-boyfriend, Livelsberger, a decorated U.S. Army Special Forces soldier, in over 2 years, when she says he started texting her on December 27th out of the blue, asking how she was.
He was just checking up on me.
What began as casual messages quickly became the last words she would ever exchange with him. The Master Sergeant served in the U.S. Army for almost 20 years. He was even featured on the History Channel series Ultimate Soldier Challenge in 2013.
We're going to go full out just like we've done the entire challenge.
In 2018, when Arrett and Livelsberger were dating.
In the interest of fairness, I will say that History Channel episode that we watched here and investigated thoroughly on the HasanAbi broadcast was absolutely cooked. They cooked the books on that one. They really firmly placed their thumb on that scale. Okay? I just want everybody to understand that History Channel episode is ridiculous. Ridiculous. It was rigged.
He started to open up about the struggles he was facing, at one point texting, "I have been spiraling down the last week or so. Sometimes I get so hopeless and depressed, by far the worst of my life."
He was really open about the trauma he faced and the teammates he lost.
On December 29th, Livelsberger sent pictures of the Cybertruck he rented.
He sent some front views, and he shared he felt like he was Batman or Halo.
It wasn't until 2 days later, when the FBI contacted Arrett, that she found out what happened in Las Vegas.
They started to show me a video of him in the Cybertruck. My whole heart broke for him, that he was so broken that he got to that place.
Arrett is still struggling with why Livelsberger would take his own life.
He didn't say anything explicit that would have triggered it, I guess.
Well, his nearly 20 years of military service, Livelsberger saw multiple combat deployments. The FBI describing the incident in Las Vegas as a...
I mean, it's so crazy. They're like, yo, this guy's so sick. It's not every day do you have an instance where you have like two military veterans, both that toured Afghanistan, do two separate like incidents, okay? And on the one hand, the brown guy who converted to Islam is, explained in a very different way. Obviously, the circumstances are different because, like, Jabbar successfully carried out a killing 14 innocent civilians, whereas Matthew Livelsberger, holy shit, I was in 10 Special Forces group with this guy, Osprey and Prey. I can't tell if this person is like, this is too much. Like, after I already interviewed one person that was directly knew one of the people. Is this for real? We got another one too? No, your point, hers valid. The cousin said she has to worry about Islamophobia. I don't think this woman has the same concern. If you want to come on and talk about Matthew Livelsberger, please send the mods proof that you serve with this guy, and we'll have you on. Or if you want to talk about it. Why not? Are you telling me we have door kickers in the audience? Yes. I think people routinely forget how many veterans and how many active duty service members are in this community. It's so funny dude, I serve predominantly an American audience. Okay. Like, it's not shocking at all. The American military, the Defense Department, is the second largest hiring body in the country. I explain this with regular frequency to people who are still shocked by this. It's no different than having someone in the chat be like, yeah, I work for Walmart, okay? Or I work for Amazon. Walmart is the largest hiring body in the country. The second largest is the Defense Department. It's the Pentagon. Also, I would go so far as to say that, like, given the experiences that people go through, if you have toured, you have an even higher likelihood of becoming radicalized against American capitalism and American wars in general. So,
tragic case of suicide by a highly decorated service member struggling with PTSD and other issues, guys.
Sad beyond words, Mola. Thank you.
We're seeing Canadian Prime Minister Justin
all right,
Trudeau.
we're not going to get to the Canada stuff yet. Hold on. There was more I wanted to talk about. A couple of reasons as to why the media coverage is very different with Livesberger is that obviously, first and foremost, he's white. Okay, that's important. He's also a door kicker, more decorated than Shamsuddin Jabbar. Didn't do it for ISIS, and also killed, 0 people except for himself. Those are the major reasons as to why the media coverage is a little different. Oh, also he's a Trump supporter. More importantly than the fact that he's white, he is also a Trump supporter. So there's that. But once again, even white guys that engage in actions, okay, if those actions are declared disruptive to the regular order of business, they will be considered terrorists by the state. Luigi Mangione comes to mind. Anyway. Oh, I saw this as well. From 1990 to 2010, about 7 persons per year with U.S. military backgrounds committed extremist crimes. Since 2011, that number has almost jumped to 45 per year. Now, one might say this number has increased because MK Ultra. I don't think it's that. I don't think that is the case. I think that I don't think it's MK Ultra or anything like that. I think it's more so that there are more people touring. There are more people that are directly in combat since America's war on terror. Since in this time frame, the thing that changed from 1990 to 2010, what changed significantly from 2010 onwards is the reality that there are far more individuals that went overseas to actually go and engage in direct combat. So I think it's more so a chickens coming home to roost type situation rather than a direct CIA sleeper cell initiative or something. We forget that Timothy McVeigh was a vet and washed out of Ranger School before being radicalized by Ruby Ridge and Waco. Yep. During an interview, saying your ex-infantry is an immediate no-go because they're afraid you're going to kill your coworkers. Also, a lot of people join at the lowest point of their lives. There are a surprising amount of people who treat military as their last resort. Yeah. How do we know he was a Trump supporter? Even in the end, it feels weird that he did this at the Trump's hotel and still claims to support him. I know. Something about that also doesn't really fully add up either. Yeah. New York Times is also hitting the ISIS note pretty hard with Shamsuddin Jabbar. A terrorism resurgence. We explore the main reasons for ISIS resurgence. Fourth, Hamas' October 7th attack on Israel and the ensuing war seem to have encouraged more attacks. Hamas fighters streamed some of their killings that day, partly to inspire copycat terrorism. We've seen the threat from foreign terrorists rise to a whole nother level after the October 7th, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, told Congress last spring. Hamas and ISIS, they're the same, is a ridiculous thing to claim because Hamas does not bear similarities to ISIS, especially when Israel is a much similar point right there. I mean, even very old mass shootings were done by vets. Texas A&M massacre was done by a Marine. Lee Harvey Oswald was also a Marine. It's wild. It's wild that they're looking at the situation and going, it's wild that the situation, I mean, this right here is so insane that it is no different than tying Iran to the war on terror. a ridiculous lie that the American government presented at the time. The axis of evil speech, the famous axis of evil speech, tied Iran to the post 9/11 war on terror. Ironically enough, the American government used Iranian targets and Iranian intelligence in their war on terror. If you understand anything about the region, okay, if you understand anything about this region, you know for a fact, and you have seen it. You've seen this this reality unfold time and time again, that Iran and the axis of resistance in the region are not exactly fond of the Salafist brigades. There are significantly more allegiances to the West amongst those who fund and facilitate ISIS-style groups. Our guy, yes, the leader of HDS that now rules over Syria, is a former Al-Qaeda leader. It is ridiculous. It is completely ridiculous to say it is Iran or Hamas that is aligned with these people. Hamas is one of the few groups in the region that gets funded by Iran or has logistical support by Iran that is not a Shia group. Hamas is a Sunni group that is invested in only one thing. And it's not just Hamas either. It is a broad group of different ideological backgrounds that are invested in only one cause, and that is emancipation and the end to the Israeli occupation. The fact that New York Times would mislead their audience like this is ridiculous. And it is no different than George W. Bush saying, that's right, the axis of evil is famously Iran, and also North Korea. The Times also tried to tie Luigi to the New Orleans attack. They had a whole heading about it, literally just grasping at straws at this point, shaking my head. Yeah. And this is, I think, the last-ditch effort of the Fourth Estate as their remaining credibility falls apart in the eyes of even their most loyal supporters. I think that they are missing the forest for the trees. Okay? Yes, here is obviously Hamas and ISIS hate Israel and each other. Ironically enough, I don't think ISIS hates Israel. I'm going to be honest with you. Times of Israel writing this article, but don't really think that ISIS hates Israel that much. Years-long conflict between terror groups resurfaces. 3 Hamas policemen in Gaza killed this week in suicide attack blamed on the Islamic State. ISIS and Hamas do, as a matter of fact, hate one another. Okay? That is true. You can say that it's because Hamas, you know, fine. If you want to believe that, that's fine. But they are not exactly fond of one another. ISIS fighters attacked Israeli Defense Forces unit, then apologized, claims former commander. Moshe Alon reportedly referred to a clash with ISIS-linked group last November. This is from Monday, 28th August. This is from 28th of August, 2017. I'm going to keep running these again. Israel gives secret aid to Syrian rebels. Fighters near Golan Heights in Syria receive cash and humanitarian help. Before people tell me, once again, Hasan, you're, I can't believe you're saying this. I can't believe you're doing this. Moshe Alon, for the record, is the ex-defense minister. The Israeli government has given aid to Syrian rebels. The Israeli government has also personally helped render medical aid to some of these militants. How can it be for the only game in town when they operate in close coordination with all the other groups as well as PIJ and etc.? Yeah, I'm just trying to tell people that I'm just trying to prove to people that even are skeptical that Hamas and ISIS have never been aligned. I don't agree with that anyway. They don't want to be the only. I mean, Hamas doesn't care about being the only game in town. They only care about fighting against Israeli sovereignty. That's it. If they wanted to be the only game in town, they wouldn't be making advocacy. They wouldn't be advocating to release political prisoners that would harm their political goals overall. If their political goals were simply to be the firm controllers of the Palestinians. Israel has been regularly supplying Syrian rebels near its border with cash, as well as food, fuel, and medical supplies for years. A secret engagement in the enemy's country's civil war aimed at carving out a buffer zone populated by friendly forces. The Israeli army is in regular communication with rebel groups, and its assistance includes undisclosed payments to commanders that help pay salaries of fighters and buy ammunition and weapons, according to interviews about half a dozen Syrian fighters. Israel has established a military unit that oversees the support in Syria, a country that has been in a state of war. Being the devil's advocate, how do you respond to people that say Hamas did a civil war to fortify their power? That's ahistorical. Hamas didn't do a civil war to fortify their power. The American government tried to do a coup d'etat against even the Fatah party at the time's wishes after a failed election. They set up a failed election. The election ended up understandably going... the election that took place ended up understandably giving more power to Hamas, which was seen as the less corruptible forces at the time, because this came in the heels of almost 2 decades of failed negotiation talks, as the Palestinian Authority, led by the Fatah party, was seen as a collaborator, understandably, in the minds of Palestinians, a collaborator of the Israeli security force, which they are. And they were Palestinians were understandably very frustrated with the Palestinian Authority and Fatah, and chose to go in the direction of the anti-corruption party. In the aftermath of that failure of an election for American interests, they tried to do a coup d'etat. The coup d'etat failed, and Hamas solidified its support. It was not a civil war that took place. It was a failed American coup, just so you understand. Hamas is also engaged in numerous high-profile executions of ISIS militants that tried to set up shop in the Gaza Strip, for the record. So the notion that these two groups are connected to one another is absolutely ridiculous. And the only reason why that actually plays in any way, shape, or form in American media is pure racism, nothing else. Okay? Pure racism. Oh, Hamas, ISIS, these guys are both scary Muslims, so they must be in line with one another, as opposed to the not so scary, our friends in the region, the Jewish nation state of Israel. That's the black and white of it. If you operate on the childlike understanding of political conflict in the region, then yeah, you will make that association. You will run with that association. It's pretty crazy. Anyway, speaking of Israel, actually, let's talk about this as well. Dropsite did some coverage from Ynet. No rape allegations were filed in the October 7 attacks, the Israeli prosecutor says. Ynet spoke to Moran Gaz, who, until recently, led the Security Cases Division at the Southern District Prosecutor's Office in Israel and was a member of Team 710, responsible for cases involving captured Palestinians in connection with the October 7th attacks. On investigations related to sexual violence, she says, in the end, we don't have any complainants. What was presented in the media compared to what will eventually come together will be entirely different, either because the victims were murdered or because women who were raped aren't willing to expose it. She excludes here another explanation, that no rapes occurred. We approached women's rights organizations and asked them for cooperation. They told us that no one had approached them. There were parents who reached out to organizations asking what to do if something happened to their daughter, but they didn't reveal the abuse. Attorney Moran Gaz, until recently in charge of the security cases at the Southern Prosecutor's Office and a member of the 710 team that handles Hamas crimes on Black Sabbath, wants to see everyone who crossed the fence then stand trial and receive the death penalty. I don't have a drop of mercy. Sorry. But she testifies up close that the path to bringing justice is slow and full of obstacles, especially with regard to sexual offenses. Unfortunately, it will be very difficult to prove them. In this matter, I would lower expectations. Ben Hattar was also responsible for the area of sexual offense. In the end, we have no complainants. What was presented in the media compared to what will ultimately emerge will be completely different, either because the victims were murdered or because the women who raped them or because the women who were raped are not prepared to reveal it. We contacted women's rights organizations and asked for cooperation. They told us that they simply did not contact them. There were parents who contacted the organizations and asked what to do if something happened to their daughter, but they did not disclose the abuse. In this matter, I would lower expectations. I know there is public expectation, and I understand the needs to address the horrific sexual crimes and sexual assaults that have been committed, but the vast majority of them will not be able to meet the threshold of proof in court, and the criticism will ultimately come to the prosecutor's office unjustly. Will the New York Times, follow through on their coverage? I don't know. So Hamas doesn't want an Islamic caliphate like ISIS? No. What? No. Israel's former prosecutor in charge said that when her office spoke with sexual violence crisis centers and organizations supporting survivors, some families reached out asking essentially, what do I do if my daughter has experienced sexual violence? However, they did not disclose whether any sexual violence had occurred. Here's more of the translated article from Ynet interviewing one of the main prosecutors on the case. The biggest difficulty is evidentiary, explains Gass. Using evidence to link to a specific crime to a specific defendant when dealing with dozens of crime scenes where hundreds of suspects were caught and thousands of offenses were committed is almost impossible. The usual laws of evidence are not suitable for this event. There are no organized chains of evidence. There's no one who filmed the videos you want to present in court. Legislation needs to be amended. Otherwise, it is impossible to deal with these cases. But even amending legislation can't be applied retroactively, so it won't exactly work here. There really needs to be reform of the legislation in terms of evidence so you can file an indictment. I hope they're doing it, but everything is going too slowly. In the end, you need a confession in a case like this. You need everyone to tell what their part was in order to build a story of a place. How many terrorists were in that place, what they did, what the advanced planning was, how far in advance they knew. All of this is important from an evidentiary point of view. But surprisingly, in the interrogations of these terrorists, they try to minimize the nationalistic aspect. From my experience in security cases, most terrorists are very proud of what they did and do not hide it. They also tell the interrogator that they are very proud. Even on October 7, you could learn how they behaved from the GoPro camera recordings, how motivated and ideologically imbued they were. But the bottom line is that most of the Black Sabbath terrorists turned out to be cowards. In interrogations, no one admits to shooting. I shot and didn't hit. I was injured immediately when I entered the outpost. I had restraint. That's not how I'm used to seeing terror. One reason for the delay in the prosecution is an attempt not to sabotage the chances of the abductees' return. Another reason is the fear that Palestinians and human rights organizations in Europe will increase initiatives for a legal counterattack against Israel. In the meantime, alternatives have been considered, such as establishing a special court for the massacre of terrorists or imposing jurisdiction in this matter in the military court in Lod, which was closed in 2000. And until then, dealt with those accused activities against state security. The issue here is that the Israeli government flubbed, and the Israeli the initial organizations that were on the ground destroyed all evidence, not deliberately. I'm not saying that at all. So why you say this without proof? What? Are you talking to the person who wrote this article? Aren't they all cut from the same cloth? Al-Qaeda, Taliban, ISIS, Al-Shabaab. What? The history of Jews were the first, and Christians then Muslims. So what are you saying? What? What is happening right now? Fuck Hasan, death to Turkey, call us peasants. Where is this peasant thing coming from? Is this like the new meta? Did something pop off on Twitter where someone clipped me making fun of peasant mentality? You said it, bozo? Or is that the same chatter? Yes, dude, if you defend your Lord King and your God, then you have peasant mentality. It's true. Sad to say. The UN report from like 6 months ago stated that there were 5,000 photographs and 50 hours of footage total of cell phones, surveillance, body cams, and dash cams. In the UN report stated there was zero digital evidence found, not to mean no sexual violence happened. Yes. So basically they just don't have any evidence. Part of that is because they ruined forensic evidence in the immediate aftermath of October 7. And the other reason for it is because there wasn't any evidence with the exception of one, according to the UN reports, that happened. They also did not allow a international. They did not allow for outside investigators to go in and apply, I don't know, some rigorous standard of forensics. So ultimately, I think running with the New York Times narrative on this is so crazy. Like that there was directed mass rape that took place. Okay. This was really funny as well. Here's another Ynet article that I wanted to talk about. I mean, funny, but if it wasn't so scary at the same time. The fact that Israel internally publishes a guide to escape war crimes prosecution is amusing enough. Let me share some excerpts, which are even more hilarious. YNetNews.com, a guide for IDF soldiers. Here's how to act if arrested abroad and what to check before flight. Does sharing footage online increase legal risk? Definitely. Soldiers who post videos online provide hostile organizations with potential evidence to support suspicious suspicions against them, according to Kaufman. How can I check if my destination poses a risk before traveling? Human rights organizations publish reports online detailing the application of universal jurisdiction in various countries. Consulting an international criminal law expert is strongly recommended. Minor content such as racist traveling. Soldiers should avoid posting photos or videos from their service, especially content showing destroyed buildings, even if there's a military justification. Such posts violate operational security and could harm Israel's image. Some countries might treat seemingly minor content such as racist songs as incitement to genocide. Will traveling become safer after the fighting ends? The threat may not diminish and could even intensify as Gaza opens to human rights groups and foreign journalists. I wonder why. Yeah. If the fighting is diminished and international human rights organizations have the opportunity to actually investigate the full scope of the genocide that Israel has committed, then all hell might break loose for you. So you might not actually be able to go to your travel destination. Also, here's a fun story, and this is the reason why people are talking about this. An Israeli occupying force soldier went to Brazil. The Hind Rajab Foundation has verified information that Israel is imminently attempting to smuggle suspected Israeli war criminal Yuval Vagdani out of Brazil because of the Brazilian court order for police to take investigative measures against him. There are also indications of evidence being destroyed. This is not only a scandal, but an affront to Brazil's sovereignty and rule of law. Israel has employed similar tactics before. So he escaped, not dissimilar to others that have done so in the past, to Argentina to avoid a war crimes arrest warrant. Literally, only the IDF could get away with something as flagrant as this. Excuse me. There are plenty of others who have also fled to Argentina in the past. This is not the first time a fascist has fled to Argentina to avoid legal scrutiny for their participation in genocide. Okay? That is not the first time, okay? Not the first time, possibly not the last, but certainly not the first time that this has happened. A new twist on an old favorite. Yep.